the Medium's book, part 2 or part 2nd, chapter uh, 20. It just says chapter X, but I thought X was 10. But anyways, it says XX. Okay, it says X on the sidebar. It's actually XX chapter 20. So by now, it shouldn't be a surprise that Kardec has a very moralistic um, tone, which I generally agree with. I believe that, we're here to advance as people. And, but he's also very Christian, and I'm not against Christianity in any way, unless it's, infringing on other people's rights. But, there's a bit of a judgment factor, and you're not supposed to judge as a Christian. We all know this. But this tone, this moral tone, and I'm not a moral relativist. I definitely also believe in right and wrong. But I believe good people can do shitty things, and shitty people can do good things once in a while. And I don't always think that his moral tone is appropriate or correct or true. And this is my personal opinion on Kardec. So I always discuss what's traditional with my students, and then I always try to say, but this has been my experience, but this is what I believe, but this is the way you can also do it, but this is the traditional way. Because if we don't speak on or teach or learn what's traditional, then now you're taking away from something. And what I was always taught from my first godfather is you can always add, but you should never take away from a tradition. That's not saying you should mix everything in, but I think you understand what I'm saying here, that we need to honor Kardec's work and what it is, right? It's important for us to understand Kardec and Spiritism because it makes up like 50%, I'd say, of what we do, at least, as a basis. It's a very foundation, really, of Espiritismo or Cruzado or classic Spiritism. If you're a Kardec spiritualist, it is what it is. This is what it is. And even if you don't want to agree with him, you still need to understand where other spiritists are coming from when they're trying to instruct you, and what's generally believed, just to be informed yourself, and find relevance in it. And you can always go back and get something else out of it. Is the development, so this is moral influence of the medium, is the development of the medium in proportion to the moral development of the medium? No. It may be more or less developed, depending on than their morality, basically. Because again, in previous chapters, it says that mediumship's not just given to good people. Mediumship's given to people because generally it's because not only are we trying to help other people develop, but it's for our own good. It's for our own development. And that's why you have to use your mediumship if you are a medium, because it's for your own moral development, basically. So developing as a medium has nothing necessarily to do with your morality, even though it can go away with your morality, because it's there as a tool for your moral development, basically. It's always been said that mediumship is a gift of God, a grace or favor. Again, he's asking the same question. Why do unworthy people, or even people endowed in the best mediums, misuse it? Yes, it's a gift from God, because some people don't have this ability. Um, you can ask why God gives good health to people who are thieves or do evil things. It's like mediumship is like a natural thing. It's not like supernatural, really. Um, Unworthy people are given it because they have a greater need to improve themselves. Do you think God refuses the means of salvation to the guilty? Uh, did not Judas the traitor and apostle perform miracles and heal the sick? God permitted him to have this gift only to expose him later and make his treason more odious, which means like disgusting or detestable, or to be more hateful, to hate him more later. Basically, he dug his own grave, basically. He was given something awesome and he fucked up. So, excuse my language. Will mediums who make bad use of their ability, who do not use it for doing good or do not profit by it, uh, by their instruction, bear the consequences? Um, so when they say profit, they don't mean like getting money for it. They mean like you don't capitalize on the instruction. You don't follow out the advice, basically. You don't use your ability or the advices you're given to do good. Like you just get the information and then don't do anything. You're still using it wrongly, so then you're going to be punished because you have the means to. You're given the means to be enlightened, but you don't profit from it. You're more to blame than someone who is not aware. You're more to blame than someone who's ignorant, who's never got the message because you were told. And it's kind of funny because you're more to blame because you have sight than the blind man who falls into the ditch. um, so yeah, that reminds me. Sometimes I ask my spirits like, I need advice, I need clarity on this and this and that, and I don't know what psalm it is or what part of maybe the Kardec's Book of Prayer is for bibliomancy that I use to get some of my answers. The answers multiple times to me has been, God's giving you intelligence. Basically, God's giving you a brain, so use your brains. I mean, do I want to hear that? No, but it's basically the advice given here. Um, there are mediums who communications are constantly being given or spontaneously on the same subject over and over again on very specific or certain moral questions are repeated. For example, about certain faults. Does that have any special meaning? Yes, the motive is to enlighten them, to correct certain faults. If they're constantly spoken of their pride, or to another person about their charity, they need to open their eyes. It's not a medium misusing their ability. Mediums, if you're not getting corrected by spirits, then you're in error, basically, because nobody's perfect. So we should all get read, basically, like to filth, like once in a while. And people misuse this to tell people off and Misa of their own like biases. But spirits from time to time have to give us warnings. And people who are negative or evil don't take the warning for themselves, don't take the advice for themselves. Like, how often, as tarot readers or whatever, or mediums, do we get advices and we're giving these advices to the person who solicited our service, and then we start realizing, oh shit, this message could be for both of you, right? But this is a message to myself, right? You're supposed to realize our wrongs, realize these messages, realize these warnings. We may have our own pride, egotism, and lack of seriousness at times. So, time to time, our spirits are going to call us to the carpet on this. Spirits may be more indirect about this. With some people are so blind and so pride that they cannot recognize what's right in front of their face. What even a spirit smacks them right upside the head with the information. And our lessons could become harder and harder until we get the message. Or our blessings get blocked, or obstacles get put in our path by our ancestors who want us to not be a crappy person or to do certain things in our life. They're trying to teach us these lessons, help us grow up, as people. Like time out. And that's also another reason for suspension of our abilities, to teach us a lesson. Oftentimes, if a spirit comes and starts telling the medium that they're bad or this and that, how they've been in error, then the medium will get angry or treat the spirit as a liar or just silly, proves that the spirit's right. Because the person gets offended at it. We should not just be like, if it doesn't matter, if it's not true, then you just be like, okay, next, right? It's not going to provoke a reaction, basically. Lessons can be dictated to the medium in a general manner, just in general, for everybody present or for the world, without personal application. Often it's not dictated for the medium, but to those that we can address through agency or just as an instrument. But we should always search the value in what's being said for ourselves. Our gift of mediumship is not just to correct one or two people. The end of the spirits is greater, to help all of mankind. We are too little of importance as a medium, as one person generally. There will be a time when good mediums are so common that spirits will not need to use bad instruments, is their premonition given here. Since the moral qualities of the medium keep away imperfect spirits, how does it happen that a medium with good qualities transmits false or gross answers? Basically, you don't know the inner recesses of the soul of a person. He might not mean to do wrong, but be light and frivolous, or may need a lesson so that he can be on his guard, be on the watch for when something bad happens, basically, or for when a bad spirit comes. Not be unaware that this can happen. That we must, as mediums and instruments of the spirits, be aware that sometimes we're going to be off key. Basically, sometimes a piano is going to need a tune-up. No piano is going to play perfectly forever, basically. Bad spirits try to influence the medium. It's sometimes you are able to get good communications through an imperfect medium. Because if you have a very good ability, good spirits may in default use them. But it's usually only temporary, because as soon as they can find somebody else who suits them better, they will prefer that. No medium is ever completely perfect because nothing on this earth is perfection, or you would not be incarnated here. The very fact that we are incarnated means that we are not perfect. We came here. It's very, very rare that we would be like a bodhisattva or something like that, or we would be like a Jesus or something. We incarnate for our own moral improvement. Because we have room for moral improvement, we are not perfect. The perfect medium would be one who the bad spirits have never dared attempt to deceive. So again, Jesus was tempted on the mount. He was incarnated. And he was not always, Jesus was not always, as an example, because he's an example, was not always omnipresent, omnipotent, or have all-knowing, omniscience, right? The best medium is one who has morality, is striving to perfect himself morally, perfect their personality, sympathizing only with good spirits, has been the least often deceived. If he sympathizes only with good spirits, how can he be allowed to be deceived? Good spirits sometimes allow us to be deceived with bad spirits so that we can exercise our judgment and teach ourselves, give us experience to discern the true from the false. However good a medium is, we will have a weakness that can be approached and should serve to us a lesson and help our development as morally. The false communication we get time to time are warnings that we must not believe ourselves infallible and inflate our pride and ego. For a medium who obtains the most remarkable things has no more glory in it than an organ grinder who produces the most beautiful music simply by turning the crank of an instrument. So you know, like those monkeys who stand on the corner and turn that crank, and there's like a mechanical scroll with knobs on it inside that, like kind of like a record on a record player, basically. That someone who puts a record on a record player can't take credit for the music, just like the medium. If you remove pride and egotism, then superior spirits may reach us. We all need to have an ego. There's no such thing as an egoless person on earth because ego is our identity. We are not devoid of personality or identity, so therefore we all have an ego, and an ego is necessary to not only for individuality, but to prevent us from having boundary, from being a victim, basically, as our root or our warrior self. So being egotistic or having egotism is not the same as having an ego, and it's impossible to kill your ego, in my opinion. So you can only refine it and get it under control like a dog, and then you have that as a means to like protect yourself, basically, and use it for a discernment and stuff like that. Kind of like your shadow self, kind of like your animal self, to have that on a leash. Your subconscious, basically. You can never erase your subconscious, so both are necessary. But you can't let your subconsciousness or your intuition overrule like your logical brain. If the speech of a superior spirit only reach us under pure conditions that are difficult? Is it not an obstacle for communications or truth? No, for the light always comes to them who wishes to receive it. Whoever wishes to be enlightened must flee the darkness, and darkness is in impurity of heart. Spirits who you consider good do not willingly answer the appeal of those whose hearts are soiled by pride and a lack of charity. So throw aside vanity and humble yourself before the infinite power of the Creator. This is the best proof of your sincerity, and this is a condition everyone of us can fulfill. Again, this is why prayer is really important. And meditation, etc., for enlightenment, because you're putting yourself in a state of humbleness, receptivity. You're stepping outside yourself. And most prayers that address the Creator are ones of like respect, acknowledging its power, etc., which then reduces our thoughts of like, I'm the be all end all, right? Just repeats himself that there's an attraction or repulsion by a spirit according to our own similarity or dissimilarity. So we each have like a personal responsibility of who we are and what we are when we're running a seance. And so people had a really hard time understanding this, especially those who come from a pagan background when I was running seances. Like, why don't you just call another entity to watch and serve guards so that no lower entities will come here? Okay, well, we kind of do that when we call in our guides and we appeal to God, but they're not going to stop a lower spirit coming in. And us still like approaching spirits from a lower mindset or having hate in our heart or just being curious or etc. or is what's going to attract good or bad energy. So it comes down to personal responsibility. It's not about calling something else over here who's going to take care of it for us. That's why it's really important for not to show up and be in a bad mood, and that's why we take a few minutes to like drop the outside world and get everybody on the same page at the beginning, right? Thus, the good have an affinity for the good and the bad for the bad. If vicious, lower spirits surround them, and they surround all of us on Earth, we have like a buildup of dead, of lost souls around Earth. They very easily have access to us, and that's why we pray not to for us to help us develop so that they don't have access to any one of us in this reunion. The qualities that attract good spirits are kindness, benevolence, simplicity of heart, love of the neighbor, detachment from material things. And that doesn't mean like you have to take a vow of poverty. It just means like you're not in excess. You don't let these things rule you or be your main focus in life, or that you do good with it. The faults that repel good spirits are pride, egotism, envy, jealousy, hatred, silliness, capriciousness, sensuality, which I guess is just, again, being ruled by your lower passions, by which man is attached to matter. And so you can see in here like a reflection of like demons or like the 7 deadly sins, right? All moral imperfections open doors that give access to evil spirits, but the one that they can play upon us most skillfully is our pride, because it's one that people are least willing to confess to. It's ruined numberless mediums with the best abilities. if they did not, if they weren't so prideful, they could have been very remarkable and useful mediums, but they became the prey of lying spirits, and their abilities first perverted are then ended or annihilated, and then they become humiliated by the most bitter deceptions. Pride betrays mediums, and it must call us to attention, and it must open our eyes to possibly distrust their spirit communication, because their spirit communication could be false. If we see a person who's like very prideful, because it would be coming from them and or a lower spirit and not a superior spirit. This can be shown by a blind confidence in the superiority of their communications, that they are infallible as a medium, or that their spirit will that is communicating with them will never give them a wrong answer. So they will disdain those who come to them because they believe that they have the privilege of truth. They'll name drop, they'll throw out great names that they'll say is their protectors and dazzle them. They will be repulsed by advice, withdrawal from their friends, or anybody who dares to challenge them or open their eyes. They will scorn their advice as if the superiority of their spirit is repulsive to them. They're offended at any contradiction, at any criticism, and begin to hate people who have done them the service. So you can see why now they killed Jesus, basically. That people can get very offended when they come to misas and stuff like that, because they're being told by spirits stuff that they don't want to hear about their own behavior. And this is why people get scammed, is because they go to people who tell them everything that they want to hear. They don't want to go to people who tell them, no, you're not going to do that. They don't like to be told no. Because these people don't accept contradictions, they will be kept in illusion. So we must always entertain. We don't have to accept criticism, but we must always entertain it, basically. Just like we must always entertain spiritual messages. It doesn't mean we have to accept spiritual messages as truth, but we must entertain it as possibly being true. Knowing good spirits will withdraw in proportion to the bad. Knowing that your gift is given to you for use for good, he seeks not applause. He takes no merit for himself. He accepts the good communication given to him as a favor, which he should endeavor to render ourselves worthy of this kindness given to us by the spirits, by the benevolence and mercy of the spirits given to us by having modesty and humility. The former prides himself on his relations with superior spirits, is false. The latter, who actually is in contact with superior spirits, becomes actually more and more humble as a consequence, or more and more sees their own imperfections. And as a result of wisdom, even if you change yourself to be a better person, you gain a humbleness in that wisdom, and you become a lot more sympathetic with other people, a lot more patient with other people. You develop more of these virtues, right? And also because you know that you've been there, so you can more place yourself in other people's shoes. Dissertation of a spirit on moral influence. A spirit medium is an instrument, just like a telegraph machine that writes is the instrument of the telegraph operator. See, so repetitive. Um, it's also up to the people, not just the mediums, but the people in the reunions. Um, when they are more advanced, when they have more experience, um, then they'll be more serious, and they won't be as impressed by these personalities, like, right? Like all these personalities of people, of magic workers that you see like on social media. And it becomes like more of a cult of who the person is and their personality more than what they actually have to offer. Or it's more of an illusion of what they have to offer than what they actually know. You're buying the cover, the book cover. You're buying the package and not what's actually inside. So it's necessary that people running the seances have exquisite tact and rare sagacity, so wisdom, in order to discern authentic communications and not to delude themselves. In doubt, abstain. So don't do it. Admit that nothing is a certain evidence of truth. As soon as a new opinion is brought to light or new evidence, even if it seems doubtful, pass it through the crucible of test, of reason and logic. Reject boldly. It's better to reject 10 truths than to admit a single lie. Um, that spiritism has become so popular now, and there's so many people who sincerely believe, and that spiritism has become more like accepted, that it's a moral doctrine, that spirits no long good spirits, these higher spirits, no longer need to be reduced to employ bad instruments, imperfect mediums. If it's apparent that a medium, on conduct of their manners, behavior, or pride, or shows a lack of kindness, that's a legitimate cause to suspect them. Refuse and reject their spiritual communications because there is a snake hidden in the grass. That is my conclusion on the moral influence of mediums. And that's, again, by one of his good spirits named Erastus. Erastus.